The night air was heavy with laughter and the scent of spilled wine as I watched her sway with a careless grace that had once belonged to me. "You can't dance," she had said earlier, a teasing smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Her words light, but somehow cutting deeper than she knew. I had laughed it off, the old familiar warmth of our easy banter settling in, unaware that it was already beginning to fray. I had been looking forward to this night for weeks. The annual summer party at her cousin's sprawling country estate. It was supposed to be fun, a night where we could shed the weight of our routines, the silence that had begun to creep between us, the unspoken resentments that had settled like dust in the corners of our home. And yet, as I watched her from across the room, tracing the sparkle in her eyes and the laughter that erupted so freely from her lips, I felt an itch of unease I couldn't scratch. I shook it off, attributing it to nerves or perhaps too many cups of coffee. But then I saw him, or maybe I should say them, her sister, Alyssa, who had always been easygoing and approachable, was leaning a little too close, laughing some joke, her hand brushing against my wife's arm with an intimacy that felt unfamiliar to me. The room had music, chatter, and clinking glasses to cover it, but my chest tightened as if the rhythm of my heart had slowed. "Come dance with me," she said suddenly, her voice lilting with challenge. She gestured to the polished wooden floor, empty except for a couple of elderly couples swaying stiffly to the band. I hesitated, shrugging. "You know I'm terrible at this," I said, trying to sound casual, even playful. She rolled her eyes, that exasperated, charming expression I had once adored. "Terrible? Or just scared everyone will see you embarrass yourself?" A laugh bubbled out of me despite the unease twisting in my stomach. "Fine," I muttered, and before I could reconsider, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the floor. The music swelled around me, fast and rhythmic, and I felt her eyes on me, amused, almost skeptical. I tried to move like I remember from college parties, swaying, stepping, finding the beat, but it felt awkward, mechanical. Then Alyssa appeared. "I'll show you how it's done," she said, flashing a grin that somehow sent a jolt straight to my heart. She extended her hand without hesitation. I glanced back at my wife. No words, no expression, but the glint in her eye was harder to read than ever. And before I could process it, I was moving in sync with Alyssa, our steps falling into place like they had done 100 times before. The crowd noticed. Whispers rippled through the gathering. "Look at them go," someone said, and I caught sight of faces turning, eyes widening, some cheering, some simply amused. For a moment, I felt alive. The laughter, the clapping, the energy, it was intoxicating. I glanced at my wife, expecting pride, maybe even relief that I had risen to the challenge, and instead I saw the faintest flicker of something else, something almost like discomfort, or was it regret? I tried to shake the thought. "It's just dancing," I told myself. But the pit in my stomach had formed, and I couldn't ignore it. Later, when the music slowed, I found myself outside, inhaling the night air, trying to calm my racing heart. That's when the small clues started to gnaw at me. Her phone buzzing too often, sudden laughter cut short when I walked by, the way her gaze seemed to dart toward me before retreating. I told myself I was imagining things, that nerves and insecurity were painting shadows where there were none. But then came the texts, accidental glances I caught over her shoulder. "I can't wait to see you again," and "Meet me after the party?" They weren't meant for me, or at least, they weren't meant for my eyes. My hand shook as I put the phone down, refusing to confront her immediately, afraid of what I might find. Over the following days, I noticed everything differently. The way she brushed past me in the kitchen, the way her laughter held an edge when she spoke on the phone. The sense of safety I had once taken for granted in our home was eroding, replaced by a gnawing suspicion that I couldn't silence. I confronted her one evening, when the world felt too quiet to ignore the truth. "Who are you texting?" I asked, voice calm but heavy. She froze, lips parted like she hadn't expected the question. "Just friends," she replied quickly, a little too quickly, her eyes flicking to mine in avoidance. I pressed further. "Friends don't send messages like these. Friends don't make plans in secret." She sighed, a long, shuddering exhale that spoke of guilt and fear and regret. "You're imagining things," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. My heart sank, but I still clung to hope, to denial, to the part of me that wanted to believe in her, in us. Weeks passed, and the cracks widened. She grew distant, her excuses more elaborate, her anger more frequent when I questioned her. I felt the shift, the warmth, the intimacy, the trust one had built over years dissolving in slow, relentless increments. And then I saw them together, not through a screen, not hinted at in passing, but in the flesh. Her and the man from the messages, caught in a moment that was unmistakably theirs. I didn't speak. I didn't move. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, and the only sound I could hear was a roaring in my ears, the pounding of betrayal echoing in every hollow space where trust had once lived. When I finally confronted her, there was no fight, no shouting, no dramatic declarations, just silence, the kind that screams louder than any argument. Her eyes were empty, ashamed, and yet unapologetic in their way. I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "It just did." I walked away, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in quiet despair. The house we had built together, the life we had imagined, felt like a carefully constructed illusion that had collapsed under the weight of hidden truths. Months later, I stood at another party, a wedding this time, trying to reclaim a fragment of my former self. I watched people dance, laughter spilling into the night, and for a moment, the memory of that summer party returned. I remembered the challenge, the teasing, the weight of being told I couldn't do something, and how it had driven me to prove myself, to live, to feel. Someone tapped my shoulder. I turned, and there she was. Alyssa, not my wife, not the betrayal, just her, smiling warmly, inviting me to dance again. I hesitated, then remembered the thrill, the defiance, the joy I had felt when I had stepped up, even in the midst of heartbreak. I took her hand, let the music guide me, and moved in step. The crowd's cheer washed over me, but this time it didn't sting. It felt like liberation. I realized that life doesn't end when trust is broken. Pain lingers, yes, and betrayal scars, but there's still a rhythm to find, still a courage to reclaim. And as I danced that night, I understood that the worst heartbreak could not erase the part of me that dared to rise, to live, and to reclaim the joy I had once thought lost.